So to all hopeful future viewers, hello. This is my friend Anthony. I'm Shefali. I'm a admissions advisor at CollegePass. So this is basically going to be me interviewing Anthony, quote unquote interviewing, who was a physics student at Bristol. Just so that you guys can get a little bit of an idea about Bristol as a university, about studying physics, and also just about kind of university experience in general. Anthony also did a lot of extracurricular stuff, did a lot of rowing. He was very on it with kind of job applications and everything. So just kind of a general idea about lots of aspects of the university experience. Hopefully it will be useful. So Ant, if you could just give us a bit of a introduction to yourself. I know I kind of did a bit, but go ahead.
No problem. So my name's Anthony Duncalf. I have just graduated recently from the University of Bristol, where I study physics, as Shefali's mentioned. I've recently just got a graduate job at a shipbroking firm where I'm doing data analysis. I really enjoyed my time in Bristol, so I hope to be able to, give you guys a bit of a better understanding of what university is like, and maybe a bit of insight into the admissions process and some of the hurdles to overcome.
Great. All right. So do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about how you came to choose physics, just about what your A-levels were? So just also briefly explain what A-levels are, and then what your A-levels were, and then how you came to choose physics.
So in the UK, we have an examination system where it's called A-levels effectively. So it's the last 2 years of your schooling where you will sit for, largely most people will do 4 exams.
Or 3.
Or 3 in fact, yeah. So you do 3 or 4 subjects. Okay. Most of your university offers will require 3 subjects, and you'll be graded on, and you'll be assessed on those subjects, and however well you do will open doors to certain universities depending on their requirements. So Can
I just pop in? No, I was just going to say, for anyone who's doing, because we have quite a few people who aren't in the English system, so crucially they're kind of national board exams, basically. So, Anthony would sit the same maths exam as me if we're doing the same board, even though we were at different schools. And then, based on those grades, whether you get the grades or not. So we're basically, when you get into a UK university, you're given an offer. So it's conditional, your acceptance is conditional on like you achieving certain grades, basically. Sorry, interrupt, Anthony. Carry on.
It's good to clarify that, because in this country, considering that we have several different boards, it makes it quite difficult sometimes to compare. But I think universities today have a fairly good grasp of where different boards are at in terms of their
for sure.
Their examinations. About my A-levels, my A-levels, I'm very scientific. I like to, I love sciences, I love maths. So my A-levels were biology, chemistry, physics, and maths. And I, at first, was considering a career in medicine. That was always the dream from a very young age. And going through my schooling, through GCSEs, through sixth form, I had always this idea that I was going to be a doctor. That was it. It was always the plan. So I was one of few people in my school to maintain doing 4 A-levels instead of 3, and I did that for the purposes of keeping my options open, because although it was a dream for many years, towards the latter part of my schooling, I was starting to get the itch for maybe something other than medicine, and questioning whether it was my vocation or not. I kept the option open.
How did you come to change your mind? Was it kind of work experience, or kind of what was kind of the final straw? Because I remember you did the UK CAT exams and everything, didn't you? You were geared up for medicine.
I did very well in the UK CAT. I was very chuffed with my score. I got 890 in the maths section, which was unreal. So I was really happy there. But I think it's a combination of factors. I had an amazing physics teacher through my
really helps, doesn't it?
Unbelievable. When you have a good mentor and you can, when they really just spark a passion in you, I think that was a real big boost for me, and in knowing what I wanted to pursue. And I think outside of that, yeah, you're quite right with work experience. I did 2 work experiences, both in hospitals.
In London?
Yeah, in London. One was at a smaller regional hospital. The other was at the National Neurology and Neurosurgery Hospital, because I was aspiring to be a neurosurgeon. That was what I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was like a real eye-opener to me, in that, you know, maybe this kind of line of work isn't for me, considering how strict and how hard the hours are on the individual, and you know, going into a decision like this where you're going to commit to 5-6 years at university is very important. Yeah, it's really important to make sure you've made an informed decision. I think that I really spent the time and took the time out to make sure that I was well informed, and I could make a decision that wasn't going to feel like I was trapped maybe 3 or 4 years down the line into my university degree, and feel like, you know, I've got no alternative. There's nothing worse. I feel that, you know, some people go to university and they're 2-3 years into their degree and they feel like, you know, I really wish I could start over again.
Yeah, made the wrong decision. Yeah,
exactly, absolutely. And I think that's why, like, I'm incredibly happy to have graduated and not feel that now. And I think that, you know, doing the research before really helped, because I was 3 days away from applying for medicine. Gosh, and then I made the switch last minute. So this is, you know, it was touch and go, and I'm so glad that I made the right decision. So I feel like it's one of those few lucky cases, because a lot of people do end up going that way. And my only advice to anyone who, you know, if you're having trouble thinking about where you want to go with it, it's more about doing the research. And, you know, even at the end of it, if you don't know what you want to do, it's kind of, I feel, is a good idea to go with your gut. That's for me where I'd say.
Also worth speaking to students, isn't it? Like, if you can, like, that's great, because they give you a real, you know, understanding of what life is like, hence us trying to speak to you guys today and give you an idea of physics. So on the subject of physics and speaking to students, what were you looking for in a university once you did decide on physics opposed to medicine, and how did you come to choose Bristol? Why Bristol?
Okay, I'll make it clear to everyone. So I, after finishing school, took a gap year. And for me, that was a really quite an eye-opening time for me. I was able to, I guess, mature a little bit, and to, I guess, understand what I wanted out of the university experience. And I say experience because although you're going to university to earn a qualification, there's so much more that comes with it. And I think that it's crucial that when you're deciding on which university to apply to, that you make sure that you understand the culture, the facilities, the way that the university is run, because it can make a massive difference to your life. The fact that you're going to be spending upwards of 3 years there is a very, very big decision to make, and ensuring that you kind of, I guess, that you resonate with the values of that university, or the culture, the atmosphere of it. That's also very important outside of the degree course, because there are so many well-run courses in this country now that, you know, you could go to any one of them and get an outstanding education. But if it's also what happens outside of that's also very important, not only for, you know, just enjoying yourself, but, you know, for your development. So yeah, sorry, I've forgotten your question.
No, that's okay. Actually, on that, so I was just asking how you came to choose Bristol, but just before you answer, like, just kind of further to Anthony's point about the culture of the university. So I went to Cambridge, for example, and the terms are 8 weeks long. And, you know, I did a humanities degree, so it's not as intense as, like, there's not as many contact hours as something like physics, which Anthony did. But say the terms at Bristol are what, 11, 12 weeks?
12 weeks, yeah.
12 weeks, yeah. So say, I know that obviously there's pros and cons to all sorts of different universities, but I know that a lot of the scientists that I knew at Cambridge, they got better at pacing themselves over the years, but some of them by the end of first term, first year, and second term and first year, they're just insanely burnt out, because, you know, there's they're just trying to cram everything into 8 weeks. It's just whatever. It's just tradition. It's just the style of the university. But it's a lot. So say somewhere like Bristol, you might have a little more breathing room just because of the way the term is structured. Yeah. So that's worth looking into. But yeah, and so why Bristol specifically?
I think that's actually part of the reason that I decided to apply to Bristol. Bristol has an amazing culture for trying to make the best student experience outside of your education. So it's probably not something to be very proud of saying, but it's got one of the best nightlifes in the country. I think everyone
important.
It's a big draw for a lot of people. I think the social scene in Bristol was excellent. So that was one thing. I'd had a gap year where I was nearly isolated, to be completely honest. I was on my own because all of my friends had gone to university. So I would only.
You were working most of the time.
I was working 2 jobs, and it was very much a grind rather than some form of like leisurely gap year, I guess.
Yeah.
So in effect, I wanted a bit more of a social life outside of just working hard, which is I still did that at university, but equally I had to try and enjoy myself a little bit. So somewhere like Bristol really appealed to me. Outside of Bristol, I also applied to Warwick. I actually did apply to Oxford. I applied to Imperial and Bath. I feel that out of all of those, the only one that I really made a good decision on was Bristol. In hindsight, this is a personal opinion now, I'm not a big fan of campus universities. I will say that they have their pros, they've definitely got their cons as well. It
can be quite stifling, can't it?
It really can be, and I've spoken to so many people who went to Warwick or been to Bath and other universities, and they've come out saying that it becomes a very small world. And I think that, as you said, it can be very stifling, very suffocating almost, because if something happens and you gain a reputation, that's it. You're stuck with those people forever. Like, you can't really do anything. And on top of that, you're almost trapped by the fact that you're quite far from like the nearest city. Most of these campuses are actually quite far away from the city centre of the nearest town. So it's very difficult for all manner of things, transportation, getting groceries, even silly things like that are actually really important, because
practical things.
You'll have to use on-campus sites, and those are often like quite inflated prices, so it can end up being more expensive. So there's a lot of factors to take into account. As I said, I personally am not a fan of campus unis, but there are many out there which are very good, so I'm not going to download them. Outside of that, obviously, I'm quite a high aspiring like individual, so I applied to Imperial and Oxford as well. I applied to Oxford and Imperial actually largely because of my rowing background. I'll just touch on that quickly. I have rowed for 10-11 years now. During that time, I've competed at a very high level, and I've won the national championships. I've trialled for the GB team. So being in an environment where the facilities were, they are world class.
It's fundamental, isn't it?
It was a very, very important point for me. And actually part of my gap year was trialling. So at the time, my mindset was very much set on, I need to go to a uni that has outstanding rowing facility. I mean, everyone knows the Oxford-Cambridge boat race, so that goes without saying, but Imperial as well, top class university for rowing. So for me, those two were very much in my mind when I was applying to that. And then Bristol on the side, the reason I actually chose Bristol in the end is it was a good mix of everything, because Bristol is an up-and-coming rowing club, had really good outlook going forward, and actually they've proved themselves over the last couple of years. With academics, they were very, very well regarded in terms of physics. They've got world leaders there. And then with the social scene, it's outstanding. So, all those factors came together and they all aligned for me. I think it was a bit of written in the stars almost that I would end up there. So I think that's where it all materialized. That's where it all developed. So they were my options, and that's kind of how I ended up there.
So could you give, on the subject of it's great that you enjoyed your time at Bristol, could you give us a bit more sort of of a detailed rundown of sort of your average day in Bristol, but physics student, a science student who's also kind of busy with extracurricular stuff, just like give us a sort of idea, talk about it.
Yeah. No, do you want me to talk about any of the extracurriculars that I did? And
yeah, definitely.
A bit of an insight. Okay.
Yeah.
I do end up putting a lot of work on myself, so I tend to take on quite a lot of things. So this is by no means what the average student does. But yeah, so I was the president of my halls in first year. I ran an alumni association. I've been involved in the Consulting Society, the Bristol Investment Fund. There's all manner of things I would do, but effectively, if I was to talk about the typical average day, you get up in the morning, depending on what halls you're at. You could be at a catered halls or a self-catered halls. If you're in a catered hall, you don't even have to think about breakfast. It's great. You walk downstairs, you fill up your plate and you go. If you're not, you might need to go to the shops in the morning if they're open. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. I was lucky and I went to a catered halls in first year. If you're in second, third year and you're no longer in halls of residence, then you've got to fend for yourself a bit. You get up, you go and get some grub down you, and then you head off to uni pretty much straight away. A lot of lectures are at 9 a.m. so you've got to get, and also it sounds like 9 a.m. is a bit late because you're probably used to getting up quite early, but believe me, it'll become late very, very quickly, very early, very, very quickly. I think you head off to your 9 a.m. lectures, and for a physics student, we'd have a lot of contact hours. So I would usually be in uni from 9 till 5 pretty much every day. Lab,
very long hours.
Very long hours. Lab can span from 9 till 6. It's awful, long days. And you'll have, if you do a science subject, you'll have lab at least once a week. In my first year, I did chemical physics. So I did 2 lab sessions a week, one for chemistry, one for physics. There are very long hours involved in these, and you have to spend a lot of time concentrating. So, if you are going to be thinking about pursuing maybe a scientific subject, bear that in mind. The lab hours are long. You don't necessarily have to be intense. You can make it as intense as you want them to be, but at the end of the day, you've got to be conscious that how hard you work will impact your results. But at the end of the day, it is whatever you put in, you will get out. Going down an average week, you might have 3 lectures a day, 4 lectures a day, and outside of that, you might do an hour inside of lectures, but you'll probably have to do 3 hours outside. It's quite a lot of work. It becomes less of a, here's your teacher giving you homework, and more of, here is some material, you now need to go and cover that. So it's very,
no, I was just going to say, it's very different to, the humanities overall in that way. Like, as Ant was saying, as a science student, you've got more structured, your time is structured for you, and you can't not turn up to a lab. Or you can, but you really shouldn't not turn up to a lab. Whereas as a humanities student, you could choose not to put the work, the self-study work. There's a lot more self-study. You can choose to. Again, your grade will suffer. But I think science, there's a lot of structured time, university structured time that you've just got to attend, haven't you? It's more like school.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does instill a little bit of a regime where if you don't attend, you will suffer, and that's how it is.
There's positives to that too.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, it helps you because it gets you out of bed in the morning.
Gives you structure.
Really does. No, if you know I'm going to suffer by not going to this 9 a.m. lecture, you have a reason to get up. Whereas I feel like, if you're doing something like humanities and, you think, oh, well, I can do this anytime. I don't actually need that. What is the reason to get out of bed? I'd rather have another hour in bed.
Harder in some ways. Yeah.
Very difficult. I think that's, it's not too, it sounds worse than it is what I'll say, because, when you're at university and you've got your friends with you and you're revising together, and, everyone helps each other, and there's that kind of community aspect to it. And within the university, which will be like, you'll have a large cohort, probably a couple thousand people in your year alone, maybe 7,000 or 8,000 if you're a big enough university. Within that, you'll have your own subject cohort, and that will itself blossom into a community that you can use for any help or any resources, and everyone's always very open and friendly. And within each university, there's a student union, and those student unions are very, very helpful, very responsive in making sure that students are cared for. So and that's across the country. So every single university has a student union. So it's actually very, very, it's a really nice safety net actually to have, because to be completely honest, I don't think most universities really care about the students. They're more there for the money. But yeah, you've got those student unions which are there to help you. So they'll always be there, and you'll have that support net and that structure for you there in place if you need it.
Yeah, you can definitely make the most of it. So on the subject of some unis not being there for their students, I do think a lot of them are, but I agree with you that I think now for so many jobs, like a degree is kind of the prerequisite, right? Everything's so competitive now. So like a lot of unis have kind of, popped up or expanded their programs. And, as a result, maybe there are some that are less, sort of have less of a tradition of supporting and helping their students. They're less used to it. But sort of all the ones you've talked about, sort of Warwick, Imperial, ones like UCL, Cambridge, Oxford, Bath, Bristol, of course. There's, they are established universities that, they're used to lecturing as well as doing research. So I think that's important. So just a question about the sort of the cons of Bristol. So I know you had a great experience overall and you'd recommend it to people, but what would you say, not necessarily the cons, but some of the more challenging aspects of it as a university that, do you think there's any sort of personality types that it, doesn't suit? It's a very general question, but, what would you say the challenging aspects of the Bristol experience are?
Yeah, I think I will say one thing really quickly. I think that if anyone wants to know anything about their university or to gain any, insight into what their university might be like or the types of people that go there, and honestly, it sounds bad, but the stereotypes are often true. Go on Student Room. Student Room is a big help. Yeah. It will help you find the type of people that go to that university, whether you'll fit, the type of teaching, the lecturers, who's good, who isn't. It is a massive help. And, it is just a forum where people can drop in questions. And if you have a question, I'm sure there's thousands of people there who will be happy to answer. Anyway, aside from that, cons of Bristol. Bristol is not a campus university. So, everything is quite spread out. That does have a pretty big effect on, socializing and also cliquiness within university. So at Bristol, there's a large area. It's almost campus-like. It's quite removed from the city centre. It's called Stoke Bishop, and that area has nearly 3,000 students all in one place out of a year of 7,000. And within that, you've got maybe 4 or 5 different halls of residence who stick together, and you will be known through your time throughout university as a Stokey bee, like someone who has been to Stoke Bishop. Like it sounds ridiculous, but it breeds almost a certain type of person. Being in that environment. And I think that, that side to it was not necessarily something I enjoyed, because, you are stereotyped in a sense that, you are going to be that kind of person, and being in an environment, it almost does ring true. Those stereotypes do carry a bit of weight with them, because of the environment that people are in. On top of that, you've got some halls. Bristol is renowned for being an Oxford Reject Hall. It's Oxford Reject University. It's I'm one of them. It is one of those things. Oxford Cambridge rejects, they go to Bristol. So you often end up with a lot of students who want to be in that Oxford Cambridge environment.
At the start are a bit bitter, sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And some people still really clutch onto that. And we have one hall in Bristol called Wills Hall, and it is styled on an Oxford college. Like, it's ridiculous. It looks identical, and it's always the most oversubscribed halls. And I always find that a bit funny.
Trying to recreate that.
As I said, you do get a type of person there, and that bitterness does hold, and it stays there.
So maybe don't apply to those schools.
No, don't. Yeah, well,
recommend that.
It's up to you if you really want that environment. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. So if you want to live there, and it's an amazing environment, amazing, they've got a great social network there. But it does.
Maybe best.
You have to be cautious about that.
Best to create more like original Bristol rather than copy it somewhere else, maybe.
No, absolutely. Outside of that, I think a lot of universities have they have their issues, and I think there's no university out there which is exempt from having pressured students quite a lot. I think that Bristol has developed a reputation for
mental health
issues within students. If that is something that concerns you, I would encourage you to do a lot of research.
Right.
In my time, I have been made aware of a number of incidents at a university which have been involved due to mental health, and it's not something you like to hear, especially when these are people around you who you walk past in the streets every day. But it is that kind of environment that can lead itself to that. So if we're talking about a con of Bristol, it is definitely the mental health support services. It's not very good. I will say that in the 3 years that I've been there, they have made massive improvements, and they have thrown a lot of money to sort this out.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it is great, because when I was there my first year, it was awful.
Pretty dire. Yeah.
Absolutely awful. Like there were calls across the country for like real change to be made, because they were getting on BBC News, like national news, because of how bad it was getting.
That's great that they kind of responded and tried to sort that out. It's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, like, they have put in very, very good mental health services now, but I think they're slow acting, so they will take a number of years before we get there. So if you're considering applying now, you may not see that effect, but you will notice it during your time there. But you might not see the full effect until maybe another 5-10 years. But, it is getting there, and that's what I think that's a really good positive, a really, really big positive of Bristol at the moment, is that they're actually responding to these kind of complaints, and they're trying to make a change, which I think is very good. Very good.
Yeah, that's a great starting point. All right, so just a few more questions for you, if that's all right. So you mentioned that at the start that you're working at the moment. You've got a job. Congrats. So what would you recommend doing at university for, firstly, what are the sort of jobs that physics grads tend to go into? And also, what would you recommend doing at university to pursue that sort of thing? If you could just do it, a few tips, brief explanation of what you did and what you'd recommend.
So, I think everyone understands that today the job market is incredibly competitive.
So, especially after COVID.
It's unbelievable after COVID, even more so now. So, there's this idea that students must make the most of their time at university in order to create job success out there, So there's a culture where people will, they'll often try and get spring weeks or vacation schemes or second year internships, third year internships, penultimate year internships, which will then hopefully lead on to a job or a grad scheme or whatnot. I think that's an incredibly good thing to do. I did do a spring week and a second year internship. They're both very, very good things to do.
They look great on your CV, don't they? They really do.
They show you're proactive.
Employers love them.
So it reflects very, very well on you. So if you are going to consider that, definitely do that. There is a almost like an urban myth about universities and job applications. They're called the Big Seven. If I remember them rightly, it's Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, Warwick, Durham, Edinburgh. Not Bristol. That's the seven. And all of those universities have a culture of trying really hard, particularly Warwick, for getting these second year internships, and they have sessions at university to actually I guess work on your interview technique, work on your CV applications.
Can I just stop you there? What are these internships in? Is it finance?
Anything. Absolutely.
Anything.
Yeah, these are just so largely they're finance, a lot of consulting, a lot of engineering jobs,
and vacation schemes are law.
Vacation schemes are law. There's at Bristol, at least, there's a massive law clinic, and they really work hard on getting vacation schemes. We've had several people
getting with good firms,
working in very, very good firms. So there's that whole network there which help out. Laws are very, as sad as it is to say, it's very much who you know.
big part of it. Yeah.
So that is, if you have that network, and these big universities, these big 7, they do have those networks. There are others out there, like as I said, Bristol have an amazing law clinic. I know several people who've just started at Lincoln's Inn, so it's a big thing now. Like we have an amazing network of lawyers.
Barristers' chambers,
Barristers' chambers, everything. So there's a lot of scope there. But yeah, as I said, it's largely there's a lot of societies at universities set up by the SU that can help you with this. Whether it be finance societies, consulting, engineering, whatever it is, whatever kind of internship you want to pursue, there are societies there that can help you with that, and you just need to go and seek them out effectively.
Because they have the link to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. They have the links, they have the resources to help you. They know what these companies are looking for, because the companies come to them and say, we want this. That's the big thing. If they come to the society and say, guys, if you can give us students to do this, we're more than happy to take them. And then you go and do that, then you've got a shoe in, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, whatever you want to do to enhance your CV, to enhance your job success, it's going to be what you do at university, and kind of like what you put into it, the work that you put into doing those applications. And honestly, it is a soul crushing process. It's
like I remember my dad described looking for jobs as a full-time job.
I know, absolutely.
Like I don't know how you did it with physics and rowing and all the job applications you were doing. So I'm starting my sort of a postgraduate law course in January, and I'm currently applying for these vacation schemes that Anthony was talking about, the law firms, and it's a long process. You have to research the websites of each of these firms, talk about what makes them unique, because they want someone who's cares about their firm, their business, their ethos, understandably. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. I'm just gonna plug this in. But yeah,
it's not even guaranteed. If you do a second year internship, if you do a spring week, if you do these vacation scheme applications, that you'll end up in a job in the end of the day. I mean, as I said, I did a spring week, a second year internship, and didn't get a job. And then I had to search, and only just recently got a job, and I've been graduated for 3 months now.
From LinkedIn, right? You managed to find
from LinkedIn. It's ridiculous.
LinkedIn is useful.
LinkedIn
Anthony made me get LinkedIn. Anthony and our other friend forced me to get LinkedIn, and it's helped so much. It's how I found CollegePass, actually.
If you're looking for a job post-university, I encourage you to look at LinkedIn, and also use your university careers service. They are often very, very helpful. I think, has that covered what you need to do at university? Or
I think so. That's a lot. That's a lot of different useful tips, especially for sort of these jobs in sort of what we call the city, in London, finance, corporate law, consulting, those sorts of things. Great, fantastic. Last question for you, really. Sort of any final sort of application tips just for the UCAS process in general? What do you think, just for a personal statement? I know that's a big question, but personal statement tips, sort of things to include, things to leave out if you're applying for physics.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite a tough one.
Big question, I know.
Yeah, it all depends on. Okay, so it depends on the university that you're applying to at first, because different universities have different application requirements. So, for example, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, you'll need to sit an exam. If you apply to most other universities, you won't need to. Some universities even require an interview. So I know that at Bristol, they actually require an interview for design engineering. It's the only course in the country that needs that. But it's just a very specific course, for example. So,
medicine always requires an interview.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very important to research the kinds of requirements that are necessary to get into your chosen university.
Yes.
On top of that, if you are going to have to do one of these tests, or you're going to have to sit an interview, I would really encourage you to look online, Student Room, or any other resources out there that you can find, and practice as much as you can. Sit as many. I know that for Oxford, they sit for physics, at least they sit for PAT. It's like
physics assessment aptitude test.
And you basically sit it, but they only have so many past papers online available. But
worth doing them all.
you can find them on Student Room, for example, going back to like 1970. Like it's ridiculous.
Oh gosh, really? Right back to that.
Because someone has catalogued them from every year and just stuck them online. Like, they've scanned them from back in the day and taken them. So yeah, there is many resources out there, and I would encourage anyone who's doing any form of aptitude test for an exam, for a university, or they're sitting an interview, practice as much as you can, because it helps.
Yeah,
so much.
You become more comfortable with the test style. You're less anxious when you get into the room, so you can spend more time focusing on the test, and you're going to do better. You will do
Absolutely. I know that, for example, the pass mark was 45%, and that doesn't sound high.
No, it shows you how hard the questions
are, because the tests are very difficult.
Yeah.
Also, if you're studying maths, there's the infamous STEP exams. They are renowned for being some of the most difficult exams to pass. So these things, they require a lot of preparation. So some people I know have spent more time preparing for their STEP exams than for their A levels, which
maths
is
A levels. Yeah, my brother was the same. Yeah, I remember.
It's the same level. In fact, it's a higher level of thinking required to pass these STEP exams. So spending the time to actually sit down week in, week out and work on these exams, as you get closer and closer towards your exam date, you need to really focus and smash it out, I think. So outside of that, if I had any tips for your application, when you're writing your personal statement, really try and sell yourself. You have absolutely nothing to lose from boasting a little bit, because I'm sure that many of you probably have done many extracurricular activities, and universities love to see that. They love to see initiative. They love to see that you're enthusiastic. So if you can really promote that. Sorry to interrupt. I think it's about also how, so on extracurriculars, like they are important for sure, but as Anthony says, it's how you for example, they show initiative, or they show that you have a passion for this. Like extracurriculars, they are important in UK applications, but nowhere near as important as they are in US applications. You need to tailor them. They're crucial, but tailor them to your subject. Tailor them to your subject specific application. Absolutely. Particularly, more academic unis, like Bristol, Imperial, Cambridge, etc. So use them to your advantage, right? 100%. So if you had to create a process, the first thing you should try and do is work out what you want to do at university. That's it. If you can work that out, then you can start tailoring an application. And once you can tailor an application, you can start working on, the test that you've got to sit. And then once you've done that, you should be away, you should be flying. And if you can get to that stage, then you're fully committed by then. But also don't be scared to turn your back on it. As I said, I sat the UK CAT. I had all of my personal statement and my recommendation documents signed for medicine, and 3 days ago I had to get everything completely changed and rewritten. So it does happen. People have a change of heart, and don't be afraid to. If you really are getting to a point where you're like, okay, I'm feeling pressured, or I want to do this because it's what I've always wanted to do, but in the back of your mind you've got something niggling, maybe explore that thought and think a little bit more about it, and give it an opportunity, because once you have once that UCAS deadline's passed, your application is gone. You cannot send that for another year. So don't waste a year. Make sure you do the research now rather than have to suffer the consequences later. For sure. Great. All right. I think that's all the questions I had to ask you, Anne. Thanks for all your advice. And that's it.